Hello and welcome to exchangeformedia.com. We are here today to celebrate women leaders in the industry for their path-breaking accomplishments and also to learn from them on how, as women leaders, they are raising the bar and breaking unseen barriers. With me today are three outstanding lady bosses. I would first like to welcome Ms. Divya Karani, CEO Media at Dentsu India.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome,
Thank you for having me here today.
Ms. Preeti Murthy, President Group M Nexus.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for having me too.
And Ms. Anisha Iyer, CEO OMD India.
Hi, good evening, everybody.
Now, first of all, thank you, all three of you, for doing this for us and doing on such a short notice. And my apologies that I did not plan it much in advance. Otherwise, we could have made it even more exciting with many more of your colleagues also joining us. So, I would like to start with Divya. Divya, you've been in this industry for more than 2 decades. How do you see women leaders bringing in a different perspective when it comes to business, especially in media and entertainment domain?
Okay, so in full disclosure, not 2, almost 4 decades. Okay, I am old and I celebrate it. In terms of your question, Nazia, on how the different perspectives that we get to the table, I'm going to start with a rebut. Let us all stop justifying women's necessity to bring different perspectives to the workplace. Let us begin by addressing workplace necessity to have her. And of course, the reasons are multiple, right? Right from as simple as a larger talent pool to choose from, to engagement, trust, perspectives, innovations, X, Y, Z. Our world is changing. Our workplace and personal spaces have become even more closer and the lines are blurred. How can we even begin to have a lopsided representation of society in our workplace? So I am flipping the question and saying that why should, and I am 100% sure we do not mean to, ask women to justify, but let's flip it around and let's ask why should the workplace beg for a complete inclusive talent pool? That is what we should talk about. And why ever not? Otherwise, it cannot be whole and total.
I agree with you, and we can definitely talk about that also. But I do believe that as women, when I see women around me, there is a different perspective that they do bring into table, whenever at whatever things I'm all for equality, but we are different. There are certain things that we have that men do not have, and I'm very proud of that. So from that perspective, I wanted to ask you, Preeti and Anisha, that if you can give an example of certain things that, and I'm assuming, Divya, you particularly would have been one of the first women, or maybe the only woman in a meeting sometimes, so what were in what ways were you different to look at things than maybe your counterpart, other men around you?
I'll let Preeti and Anisha take the call, and then if I could, I will add.
Preeti, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, because I'm smiling so wide because Divya used to be, my super boss many years, 2 decades ago. Out of her 4 decades, mine was 2 decades back, right? And I've seen her being the only woman in the boardroom as well. I don't think my era, I felt so out of place because I think by the time I came into a leadership role, there were enough women in the boardroom as well, both at the client side and the publisher side and the agency side and so forth. But if I look at the question more narrowly, it gets lonely in the sense for women, it's little more lesser than maybe the men. But somewhere, I don't think in a boardroom, I'm so conscious about my gender. At least I haven't experienced it because it becomes gender agnostic. Like the way I mentioned, it becomes more focused on what you are delivering, what's your role, and what you want to do. And we've been in many forums where this is brought alive when it's not required, right? So I just feel that the minute you enter the boardroom, then the gender goes away. And if it doesn't goes away, then it's a force fit of the gender. That's how I look at it, and that's been my experience. I haven't seen the gender become an issue at the boardroom.
Anisha?
I agree. I don't see gender as an issue at all. And if it is, then it's in the minds of certain people who, I mean, good luck to them, yeah. I mean, honestly, beyond the point, for the ones who are, so-called in the limelight. I mean, the three of us are sitting here under a microscope saying, please tell me where the disparity is. There isn't. We don't feel like that. I mean, I'm fairly sure we don't. Thanks to a lot of people, at least in my sense, among most industries that I've seen, I think the media industry is slightly better off as compared, and I'm not saying advertising, I'm saying media is slightly better off as compared to most businesses with respect to meritocracy. So, I guess we picked the right business, yeah, to thrive. maybe that's what did it. But honestly, I mean, it doesn't matter to the person in the room, because you're in the room for who you are and what you're capable of, and not because you're wearing a skirt and not a pair of trousers, man. I don't see it like that at all.
So the question was not about whether you feel different when you were there. The question was more about how you look at things differently. Then
I don't.
Let's say
I'm saying that's exactly what I'm saying. We do not.
Yeah.
I don't look at it.
But we asked this question to a lot of men in the industry when we were doing our Women's Day series, and they all had so much to say that
you should have got them in the panel, yeah.
Okay, here, if I may,
I'm going to share all those videos with you. They had so much to share that, how women add a totally different perspective to everything that we do. And I'll definitely share that feedback with you. So, now again, going back to Divya, because she's been around for 4 decades.
Nazia,
sorry, yes.
If I may interrupt, good. When you have shared that the men are saying all that they are and they're calling it out, they're learning, and high time that they did, right? I completely agree with all that Preeti and Anisha have just shared, but I'm going to pause, and I am taking the liberty of addressing the elephant in the room. All my life, in all these 4 decades, exactly what Anisha and Preeti called out. I was good and great at my job. I did not think of myself as a man or woman, and I did what I needed to do. Every year, clockwork precision, Women's Day, I was told to stand up in our boardroom, address the young men and women around the organization, and I would go on record saying that, look, there is no discrimination in our world, in advertising, in media, and we do what we do. Till a couple of years ago, and it's just a few years ago, in complete serendipity, it's almost like a penny dropped. And that year, I stood up and I said in the boardroom, and I think HR could have, may have wanted to throttle me, I did admit, is there discrimination? Yes. Is there discrimination in the in society? Capital yes. Is it there in our industry? Capital yes. Is it there in our organization? Capital yes. The thing is, there is both. There is conscious and subconscious discrimination. And the subconscious is so insidious that it creeps up in you, in me, in Preeti and in Anisha. We've got so used to over the years in doing all that we do and a little more that it just happens automatically unless and until you're very, very conscious. And then you risk the thing of being called a feminist, correct? So I'll give you one slice of life in our boardroom, precisely that, in our boardroom, 3 of us there in that room, and we were talking and it was an important early morning discussion till one of the men said, let's have a cup of coffee. Who got up to call the canteen boy? Now, if we were all male, I could have well done it. But why? Look at the odds, 33% probability. The two kept sitting. One had suggested, I am the one getting up. And while walking to the canteen, because it was an early morning 8:30 meeting, while walking to the canteen, it struck me in slow motion. So there is a slice of life for you. Not that, I may have been a male and I would have done it fine. It's just being courteous. But chances are there is an ingrained enough. So that's all that I will put out there.
So learning from you, next time when I or Anisha or Preeti are in this situation, we will not get up to get the coffee.
Right. You'll say, brilliant idea. Why don't we do something?
Also, Divya, you know what I wanted? So, like you've said, that at some conscious level, there is a bias that we all have grown up with. What are some barriers that which are not visible, but like you said, like you gave just one example, which are some other barriers that you have seen? And of course, I'm hoping, I'm very optimistic that in last 20 years, they would have reduced. When you would have started, there would have been far more than, when I, Anisha or Preeti started. So what were these, if you can talk about?
Yeah, there are some very, very real barriers. And, I don't know whether to celebrate or be sad about it, considering that I've been in this industry for so many years. Not much has changed. It's not as if I experienced far more hardship than a Preeti or an Anisha did or a you have, right? So that is both celebration and sadness, because not much has moved, right? The very real thing, let me tell you, and I myself, when you're interviewing a female talent versus a male talent, the thought that's racing through your mind are very real. Marriage, maternity leave, and so on and so forth, right? And we are a service industry, and the more senior the talent is, that gap will have that much more of an impact. Do you want to practice empathy? Of course you want to. Do you want to be inclusive? Of course you want to, but it comes at a price. Then you think through, and the thoughts that race through your mind is, however, what she brings to the table more than compensates for whatever gap, this, that. But in the earlier days, I will confess that while interviewing, these thoughts would go through my mind. Now, at the same time, I have, like Preeti, like Anisha, always had huge pride, and Preeti will testify to it. Man, woman, you're, as good as what you bring to the table, period, right? And there was this innate confidence that I'm doing right. But it's not just practicing equality, it's practicing equity. And there is a huge difference between equality and equity. That is what is the call of the day, and practicing equity, rigorously holding yourself accountable to that. That is what is needed.
Preeti.
I think it's very difficult to chime after what Divya has said, right? So resonate with what she said. The experiences, at least in the last 5 years, are slightly different, in the sense the consciousness about this is much, much higher. Maybe if you're part of a global network, there's also a global lingo around it. There's a diversity lingo around it. But the real challenges of women on the floor, largely at the middle level, continue to exist. So leadership would cross the hurdle, right? But if you're in a middle manager level and you're going through transitions in life, these are real challenges with the male manager or a female manager, because it doesn't matter when the manager wants to get the job done. They're more worried about how long the person going to be away for is 6 months, or is it going to be a parental care leave for 2 months, or so on and so forth. And that is where I think organizations are matured today to take this as part of transition initiatives for employees. More specifically, we are more conscious in listening to the women employees, at least in Group M, and we've more consciously put around workable solutions for them to make this more meaningful in the transition phases. So there is a shift. There's definitely a shift. There's also a shift because I feel there are more of women leaders like me, Anisha, Rati, Anita Kotwani,
Anupriya.
Monaz, Anupriya. They were all different league. Yeah. They are like, for me, all my ex-bosses. So move them aside. I'm putting them in a different pedestal. But all my peers from my past, like Monaz, and all of us are voicing it also. Right. So there is that, these conversations were in the back end, where internally we used to chat, like me and Anisha used to catch up when we were working together, talk about it. Now we're talking about it very freely in the open, and we're not vulnerable about it. We are not feeling threatened about it. We're not attaching any emotion. These are facts. We are stating facts. These are changes that needs to happen in the way we work, period. And this is how one should do it. Each organization, each entity is adapting it in a different way and style. But this exists now, and that transition is visible.
My interconnect.
Yeah, your network went for a bit pause.
A little bit, yeah.
It's back. Yeah.
Sorry.
Preeti, you can continue.
Yeah. So my point was these transitions are more visible now because a lot of women leaders are talking about it now. And there are more women leaders in the industry to talk about it also. I think that fair share has gone up for us to be very vocal about it too. So when I took on my earlier avatars in the past, I was very vocal about being, say, a women leader at 40, because at that time it was trending and it was meaningful. It was inspiring to many young women to say that it is okay to have a child and take up a leadership role. It is okay to have a late child and not being traumatized about it and then take up a leadership role. Or it's okay to be single and, go full log on your career and nobody's going to question about it. These are stigmas and tags attached to many of us. And I think now we are breaking all those tags and we are making all these as comfortable conversations. And that kind of transitions is what organizations are supporting and enabling today.
Anisha, what's your take on that?
Okay, so I'll go back to your original question, right? You said, are there barriers that are visible or not visible? I mean, having, and I fully acknowledge Divya's view, Preeti's view. There are more of us than few of us as opposed to a few years ago. But I think it's still far and few. One of the things that we need to do better is create more of us, because there are still women who are still, in the 7 to 9 year or 7 to 12-year experience window, and a lot of them still question, do I put my career over family? How do I balance things? Work-life balance suddenly becomes a question exist. It just is. I mean, life is just the way it is, right? So we need to do more to instill the sense that we have, amongst men and women both. And I think in that context, I treat both genders fairly equally. But the sad part, I mean, that's one good side, and kudos to everybody championing the cause. But on the other side, I mean, there are real issues. Like I may not have been in the recent past, but recent enough that you would walk into a room with a gentleman and the same advice coming from the gentleman's mouth will suddenly start to get better nods and better eye contact, as compared to the exact same opinion coming from, a woman in the room. And regardless of whether I've seen it even where the designation might be one up for the lady in the room and one down for the man in the room, but somehow you would, even when that conversation is ongoing, you would look and you would nod better, and you would not nod when the same opinion, informed opinion in my view, comes from the woman. And it happens more often than you think it does. So while there is a lot of progress, there is also that side to it. But the good news is I have learned how to use that to my advantage. So the days I know that I am walking to a room where I won't be taken seriously, I don't walk only into that room. Like nahi jana, koi aur kar lega ka. And that's fine. because everyone has a job to do, everyone has a role to deliver, and this is beyond capability, right? This has nothing to do with capability or credibility. This is about getting work done. And if a man can get it done better, well done, please go get my job done for me, and then I'm good, because then that task can be ticked off. So I think instead of getting annoyed at some of these anecdotal things that happen in your life every day, or sitting and being all, oh, I'll do one blog on feminism, just use it to your advantage, because it just saves you one meeting, which is why not, given our lives.
So, while all of us have now spent enough time to pick up some trends. So like Preeti said, in last 5 years, a lot has changed. So do you feel that now this industry or most industries are becoming more and more gender agnostic? Those biases are being dropped, when we are hiring people. I remember earlier in my career, HR used to ask, when do you plan to get married? Do you have children? Do you plan to have children? These were normal questions that would be asked, by HR heads, when they're doing your routine interview, which I think have stopped now. At least maybe they've stopped asking me. So have you seen some kind of shift in last few years when you are hiring people? Not you, as in like people around you. I mean, you will of course be gender agnostic, but
we hire anybody who knows everything. We are an industry which is always short of staff. Why would we put a gender filter in hiring all these questions? Yeah, beyond us now. Ask our teams. They will hire anybody who trespass our floors now.
True that. Look, no, okay. So the honest answer is it has changed. It has gotten better, no question. The only thing I would say is subconscious bias still exists. I get annoyed the most when that bias comes from a woman to another woman. It's probably 10 times worse off than a guy having subconscious biases towards women. So I think because I mean, it's almost like saying I went through that 10 years ago, but guess what? I'll punish you for that today. And that's not fair. So that's the one thing that I hope over a period of time, and that's also dialed down now. I mean, it's not as loud as it used to be, I guess, but it has dialed down significantly over time. But I'm saying honestly, media industry within advertising in this country should applaud themselves, because they are one of the very, very few where they allow merit to win and gender does not play a role. I really wish other industries took a page out of our book, because we are rocking it as a business, and I don't think the others are as well.
Divya, what's your take on that?
I love all that Anisha has just said. So full marks. And I love the fact where there is an acknowledgement and I use it. Baba, complete Baba. Okay. So my take, yes, of course, there's gender discrimination. Yes, of course, there is an increased awareness, acknowledgement, and the right to speak. Right? And therefore, if there is that acknowledgement and the right to speak, we are making progress. No quarrels with that. But there is so much ground to be covered, that it will take sustained, much more effort, real effort, for the facts and figures to substantially move. So we are, to Anisha's point, perhaps a notch or two ahead of the other, let's say, industries, right? We have in pockets actually epitomized complete equality and equity. But is there more work to be done unequivocally? Yes. And then the acknowledgement, when we say more work to be done, words need to be translated into action at scale. That is what I'm calling out, at scale, across the ranks, right? So that's one. Second, acknowledgement of the base effect in this thing. There's so much to cover. Years and years of bias and I think either Preeti or Anisha mentioned, both amongst males and females, we ourselves at times are our own worst critiques. How often? I mean, introspection is very healthy, but beyond a certain point where we hold ourselves accountable, we do not need to. So that in itself, we carry that, and that's part of our upbringing, subconscious biases. And then lastly, I mentioned this earlier, all of us, males and females, not just practicing equality, unapologetically practicing equity. And I'll bring this to life actually. Years ago, and this has got actually nothing to do with gender, but years ago, I had a team member, and fact is that her personality over a period of time had become that of a fighter. You probed a little deeper, and there were very many reasons for it, real reasons. And therefore, when she would ask, she would drive herself mad with work, she would drive her team mad. Nobody in the team, not many people in the team wanted to work in her team. Okay, she would go and fight with a client also. So very often I had to step in, right? And it was all it was. And then she would ask for certain leave and so on at short notice, because she had to go and fight some court cases, which involved family and all, and I would give her leave. HR didn't know about it. My team thought I was soft on her. Now I have a descriptor for it. At that time, I did not know. All I was doing is I was not practicing equality. I was practicing equity.
Equity.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying that consciousness, if all of us do that particularly towards women, it is needed. So then there was this call out right now that male or female, anybody, and I understand that emotion as well, guys. But what we've done is we've set ourselves a certain mission, we've set ourselves metric, and in doing the method, what we've done is we now give unapologetic preference to women if the talent is the same. There's a prescription that goes out from me to our HR that I would first like to interview women over men, because there is so much I need to correct, all else being equal. So there it is.
Preeti.
Can't agree more. I think interestingly, as much as I am saying there's a lot of comfortness today in this whole, the journey has been different for different people. Like I had a different journey. I think I started coming of age of thinking, saying, am I getting sidelined because I was of my gender at some point, in many points in my career? And I think because I was an extroverted vocal person, I could bring it out. But I think the need of the hour is more conscious steps, more conscious programs, more open forums for us to bring this alive, right? One of the reasons I took up coaching was not anything else, but to coach a lot of upcoming young leaders, women leaders specifically, to feel unapologetic about wanting that growth and wanting it all, or having a career and managing home, or just focusing on my career and not worrying about home. Both ways, it doesn't matter. This initiatives is a very small drop in the ocean. Whatever we are doing today, it's a very small drop in the ocean. And I'll tell you why, Navya. And next year, you guys at eForum should start playing a bigger role in this. Don't call only women on women's, Women's Day leadership. You said you took videos of all the men. Please get them into such forums, because when they speak, they also bring about the change.
Yeah.
Because currently only 25-30% of us are wanting the change and making it real. The rest are talking about it and moving on, because they don't see it as a primary focus for themselves. Not because they don't want to, that's because that's not something which is made visible to them more often than not.
Yeah.
So I think this year actually I participated the lowest, because I just said, I always ask, are there men in the panel discussion? Like, no, then I'm not coming. The only reason I came is I have Divya and Anisha here. What more lucrative role do I need to play? But I think that is where the magnanimity of the magnitude of the change has to change. It can't be these droplets. It's not enough. And that gives me a lot of restlessness. And if you hear me in the office, that's what I'm going blah, blah, blah about all the time. Saying, don't make these small changes. Let's do 2 things, but let's do 2 big things that can bring about, मतलब ट्रैक बदल दो यार. वही हम पुराने ही पट्टे पे चल रहे हैं और पुरानी स्पीड पे चल रहे हैं ना, तो फिर स्पीड नहीं बढ़ेगी ट्रेन की. हमको इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर चेंज करना है, सब कुछ चेंज करना है. And that is where big shifts will happen. I'm done talking about these small shifts. And frankly, all the questions are small shifts, small changes.
Go for it, Preeti. Go for it.
Build a plane, Preeti.
We all have in a way become very gender agnostic now. So we were doing an event and I remember I contacted Mark Reed's team and Mark Reed agreed to do it. And then Mark Reed asked me for other speakers. And we had late Mr. Per Pedersen, we had Adam Gerhardt, and we had all these very top level CEOs and global CEOs and APAC. And then he suddenly noticed, he said, there is no women. And it suddenly stuck to me. And I remember going to Divya then. You remember, Divya, you also spoke at that. and actually, it did not occur to me. And
I'll admit something.
Mark's team said that if there won't be any women in this event, I'll not speak. So, but that's true. How do we become gender agnostic? Because actually, it did not occur to me. I was just hiring good people. I just wanted good speakers. So, it's actually a very catch-22 kind of a situation where when you even want to be gender agnostic, you cannot be, because there is an existing bias that people look at. Like even on this panel now, Preeti said that there should have been men, and which I agree. Now I have a second thought that maybe I could have got some men also on this panel to talk about it. Another question that I wanted to understand is that, they always say that women are very good at multitasking. Divya is a mother, Preeti is a mother. I know about both of you. So is it that it is imposed on us to be good multitasker because we have to do all of this? Or do you feel that it comes naturally to women to, handle house, work, everything so seamlessly?
Oh God. I lost my marbles in COVID. Anisha is laughing because I've talked to her the most thing. Beta, kya ho raha hai? I've done video calls. She was sitting out of, I think at that time she moved from Malaysia to Thailand.
Yeah.
It doesn't come naturally.
It does not.
Okay? You do it up to a certain point. I think there is a threshold for any human being to multitask. There is a threshold. And I think thanks to COVID and work from home, I have decided to draw my boundaries on multitasking, because I'm also running an organization. I'm also part of a family. So as a family unit, we have roles and responsibilities. Unfortunately, I come from a family that understand that gig, right? So I'm very, very fortunate. Like a lot of young girls come and ask me, how do you manage it? I keep saying, marry right. Without the right marriage, it becomes a big challenge. And same thing I tell for men. Like if their wife have had kids or they're working and they're going to get back to jobs. I'm like, please get your wife aligned on both your career goals. Marry right. It's both sides, right? And it is claimed to be natural. I don't think it's natural. It's not humanly possible for anybody to be multitasking like that level. And it should not do it also.
Divya.
I think we should stop trying to justify women's necessity to multitask. We should almost give her a chance not to. Right? So I would almost say that there is no difference in this day and age amongst men and women, right? When I say this day and age, apart from some physical attributes, we are both born the same, right? Why should this yoke of multitasking or being a sacrificing mother or being a sacrificing spouse or packing the meal for the household or healthy eating and all, why should that yoke only be on the women? So therefore, let's if we want to really celebrate the women in our lives, the women in our society, the women at home, give the women a chance to live with complete imperfection, completely. I will come for an interview with this and I am all right. I am good. I am mediocre. I am not so good. It's me, right? The whole package. Therefore, if that pressure is removed, and in that, often a praise or 2 or 3 has inbuilt biases again in there. If we realize that, I think we'll have done right by ourselves and the larger society. That is my bit.
Anisha, how about you? How much do you
I
multitask?
will give you a very, I'll give you a man empathetic perspective on this one. So my sister's a new mom. Her husband walks up to office and says, for the first 3 months of my baby's life, I will spend 4 days in office, but the 5th day or 3 days in office and 2 days I will work from home because I need to double up with her and help bring this child up. Both of them decided that we will not live in a house with parents. We will live in our own place. We will bring the child up as a unit because that's how it's supposed to be done. We will take turns, we'll do our bits. Both know how to change diapers, both know how to feed, both knows everything else. I mean, even though physically my sister can do something and he can't, but other than that, they've figured it out. And his conversation with his superiors at office was, "Tu kya karega ghar pe? वो तो उसका काम है." So and he was mad because he said, I don't want to do this. I want to do it right because I'm an equal partner. I got married and I call myself her partner. And therefore, I want to do it in a certain way because that's what partnership is. So it's not like the men are spared, to be honest. There are a lot of progressive men today who, want to, I think, want to do the right. I mean, to your point on equity, right? To want to do the right thing, because, and not because someone's telling them, because they want to do the right thing. It's just the way they are. And they face more barriers and more judgments and more critique than others do. And I was amazed when he came back and had a chat about this with us. And I said, so what are you doing finally? He said, I'll figure, I'll find a way to keep him happy and figure things out at home also. But imagine, I mean, in all
Anisha,
this, yeah, there is the other side.
Anisha, because there is headwind, right? And he is swimming against the current.
Yeah.
A lot of, I know of a number of feminists who are males.
Yeah.
And either their mother, their upbringing has been one where they've learned it early in life, observing their own parental role models when they were growing up, but it begins early. So one of the things I have is to change our future. We need to change the present. And to all the parents, we need to, right from the time a child is born, called out, we need to ensure that there's equity there and then take it forward. That then will augur right and will make it at scale so that, like your brother-in-law, there are many, many, many more.
Yeah.
I remember there was a colleague of mine who applied for paternity break, and then everyone, when he was on the break, everyone was laughing that, wow, isko kitna acha bahana mil gaya chutti lene ka. So they could not, they could not accept that he would be at home and doing, things that are required to do when a baby is born. They assume that he must be taking his time off. So, you're all women leaders and you are training a lot of young girls under you. What is the kind of narrative you want from here, going forward? What do you want them? What are a couple of things that you want to tell them to do as they grow in their career? Not as professionals only, but as women professionals. One, of course, I completely agree with Divya that be imperfect. It's time for women to be imperfect. What are some of the other things that you would want young girls to do now on?
I think to be uninhibited. Many times they don't share what's happening at home or whatever, because, I don't know how my boss will see me or whether I'll get the career program. I think being very vulnerable in office is okay, and sharing uninhibitedly, saying these are my challenges. This weekend I can't work, or, I will not be available from this time to this time. Put your boundaries up front. Absolutely be what you are. I think most of us have got these roles and leadership situations is because we are we are pretty much filterless in that sense, right? We say what we want to say when we want to say, because we know that we are true to our work, and hence we can say what we want to say. Um, and that is the proof of the pudding. The work is the proof of the pudding. The rest is all noise.
Divya.
So this is not only a women's issue, it's a society's issue. So let's admit that we are not responsible for having all the answers, right? It is all of us collectively that need to address. Then I would advise them that be very grounded and pragmatic. And Anisha called this out, and I was saying Baba in my mind, right? Be grounded, pragmatic, find the support you need to manage your various roles, right? Because there is that need to manage various roles simultaneously, because we simply don't have the resource and the time to address all the roles, and we can't do it alone, right? So admit that. And in doing that, Preeti spoke about it. Sometimes you may be vulnerable or two. You may be imperfect. You may have solved and be a genius, but sometimes you may not. So be human, be yourself. You are good as you are. You have your strengths, you have your weaknesses. As long as you harness your strength and you cover up for the latter, most often, if not always, I think that relatability will happen. And that in itself is inspirational because it's real. You're not putting on a foisted, a superwoman thing. You're making it real. You're making it relatable. So I would advise that.
Anisha.
Okay, so I don't think it's my place to say that I have a bespoke advice for women, to be honest. No. And in that sense, I'm very gender neutral in the manner in which I conduct my business. So everyone who's in a professional organization or responsible for certain deliverables or accountable for a certain role, that is all that there is. Know your job, know what you need to do to get better at it. If there are areas that you need to figure out for yourself, or if someone will help you do that, and then it doesn't matter what gender you belong to. Yeah, so chase your goal, chase your dream. It does not matter. I mean, I can say this as somebody who's not a parent, who's divorced on this panel right now, and I'm doing well in my career, and I'm not saying this with any regret, and not that I took decisions about my career at the cost of something else. It's not even that, and it's okay. So there's you have a Preeti who's on one side, and there's me on the other side. If you look at us personally, we are very, very different backgrounds in that sense. But as people, we're the same. We're exactly the same. It's actually really scary how similar we are. But so what? And my conversations with anyone, I mean, if anyone who knows me, if you speak to them, I'll say the exact same thing, that it's your capability, your ambition, your hustle to get to where you want to be. And then it doesn't matter whether you are and you could be totally happy not being overtly successful, and that's okay too, because that's the choice you made. I mean, I'm at home bringing up a family, and I have a boutique on the side. Well, good for you, as long as you're happy. And there's someone else who's saying, I'm running a company, and they're happy. Good for them. So these labels have to go away, and the labels have to go away for men also. I think sometimes it's unfair on the other side as well. And it has to be, I mean, if we're talking about equity, then it has to be the same everywhere. And now there aren't just two genders, there are a few more that we have to acknowledge and give respect to, and that's fine. So you are a person on this planet. You are supposed to be the better creature that God created amongst everything else. You have brains, and make use of it, yeah, and make choices for yourself. 2 saal sabbatical lena le lo. You're not answerable to anybody. Do it for yourself and move on. So yeah, I mean, my advice to anybody doesn't change because of their gender. Pick a goal, run towards it, achieve it. Pick the next one, run towards it, achieve it. Pick the next one. That's his life.
So now, before we close it,
Nazia, before we close, I'd just like to table one more fact. You asked us to share real experiences. I need to share, and this is particularly to Preeti and Anisha, as well as all the viewers there. There was a time where often when, you'd get recognized in a women panel or a women award and so on, I would internally shrug it off. I did not give it as much of an importance. Why? Because to me, I was male, female, it was the same. And you were being awarded selectively just because you were a woman. Part of me, there was latent anger as well. Don't care about that, right? And then I came a full circle. And I said, okay, fine. There is this committee that has decided to actually practice equity and celebrate women. I therefore need to participate fully and completely there. And let's face it, each one of us on this panel are in every one of us on this panel, there are many, many more who we could perhaps inspire, right? Because the pyramid is that. So that responsibility is there on each of our shoulders. So now I fully participate and immerse myself in that glory, because that then I'm carrying the responsibility that much more. So I'm just sharing it with everybody, because now I refuse to. It's a women forum and I'm being acknowledged. I'm fine and good and great. So I've come a full circle. So there it is.
So, before we close, we've spoken about all the barriers and all the biases, everything negative that we have faced. And there's a lot good that we need to do. But, what is it that you celebrate about being a woman? If Divya, Preeti and Anisha, you can share that one thing that you really enjoy, and if you had been born as a man, you wouldn't have been able to. Other than your lovely sarees, Divya.
You say something very inappropriate. Okay, look, inherently we can look a lot prettier than men.
Definitely.
So, yeah, I mean, too bad. But no, I'm not answering this question. I don't think there is anything different, to be honest.
Yeah,
I celebrate me. I would have celebrated me if I was a boy. So
yeah,
lovely. So we all celebrate ourselves. I was going to say I celebrate myself.
Correct.
Idiosyncrasies, what and all.
Yeah.
I am a good human being largely.
Yeah.
And if that is there, I celebrate myself, period.
Yes.
Yeah.
Same for you, Preeti, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see the gender filter to celebrate more or less. I always celebrate myself more. You know that, Nazim.
This one question I've got from audiences for Divya. Divya, if you can answer this. Did you ever get chance to discuss the issue of equity with your higher-ups when you were not in the senior role?
This whole concept of equity is something that has dawned on me a couple of years ago. So I am admitting it, because there I would say equality, this, that. So, and it takes a lot of emotional bandwidth when you're putting yourself out there and saying, hello, you need to. So the short answer is, I have not. Okay. Should I have? Yes, I should have. But I will not shy away from the fact that this wisdom came to me in complete serendipity and slow motion. So there.
I hope by the time my daughter grows up, she's only 4 years old, we stop celebrating Women's Day. We stop holding these panels on, how women should break all the barriers and come out of a lot of things. And I hope there is no Men's Day as well.
I hope next year it's a different format, Navya.
I'll definitely keep that in mind. Definitely. You could have given me that feedback earlier also.
But it was just sudden, no? You just
it was actually very sudden. It was actually just out of a discussion that we felt the need of doing something on Women's Day. And I just reached out to all of you. And you three were very kind to, accept it on this short notice, of which 2 days were Holi, because this time Holi was wonderful suggestions that has come from all three of you. I think my connection is again unstable. So thank you, Divya. Thank you, Preeti. Thank you, Anisha. Thanks for, being role models and inspiring us every day. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you both, all three of you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have fun.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, ladies.
Bye. Bye.
Good evening.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.